Hey there guys, I want to welcome you to Friday's edition of Journey Through the Gospels. And today we are in Matthew 22. Did you know that there are some pretty crazy laws that are on the books in states all over this nation? And now let me share with you some of those. And since I live in Kansas, let me share with you some of the laws that are actually on the books in the state of Kansas. And you know, sometimes when you hear these, you know that there has to be a reason that they made that law, but when we read it now, it just kind of seems funny. So here's some of the ones in Kansas. Rabbits may not be shot from motorboats. Rabbits may not be shot from motorboats. Another one, pedestrians crossing the highways at night must wear taillights. Another one, you may not catch fish with your bare hands. I'm not sure how noodling figures into that. Another one, the state game rule prohibits the use of mules to hunt ducks. And one more, if two trains meet on the same track, neither shall proceed until the other has passed. I mean, those are pretty crazy, and you read those or hear those and think, how in the world did those come into being? But they're on there. And you can, if you want to see some more funny laws, you can go to www.dumblaws.com and you can find some for every state on there. But in Matthew 22, a Pharisee lawyer comes to Jesus to ask him a question. And let's look at it in verse 34. It says, hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. Now we have to remember that during Jesus' day, that there were over 600 laws in the Old Testament law. And one of the things that people would do for fun, now you may not think this would be fun, but one of the things that they would do for fun is they would sit around and they would debate and argue about what the greatest law that anybody should follow is. And so this lawyer comes to Jesus and says to him, repeat it again, he says, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? So he comes to Jesus, the master, and asks him the question, Jesus, what is the greatest law? And in a sense, what he's basically saying is what is the most important thing that we should be doing? What is the most important thing that we should be doing? I mean, that's a great question, isn't it? I mean, think about it personally. If I were to ask you, what is the most important thing that we should be doing in life? I mean, that's a pretty weighty question. And so Jesus says to him, the most important thing, he says, the most important command is this, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, and mind. He says that's the most important thing. It's the most important thing. Loving God should be the most important thing in our life. God should be number one in our life. I mean, He should be above our spouse. He should be above our children. He should be above our jobs. He should be above our hobbies. He should be number one above everything in our life. And you may say, but doesn't God want me to love my spouse? And doesn't God want me to take care of my children? And doesn't God want me to work? I mean, God wants me to do those things. I mean, those should be important too. They are all important, but God should still be number one. Because here's the thing. Most people try to do all of those other things first, and then if they have some spare time, they try to squeeze God into their life. And what they find is that they have no time left for God. They have no energy left for God. The other thing they also find is that in trying to do the things, take care of their spouse and their kids and their job and everything, that they're kind of doing that on their own strength, and they're not doing a very good job at it. But if we'll put God first in our life, if He becomes number one, you know what's going to begin to happen? As you place God first in your life, you become more like Him. You don't become God, but you become more like Him. You take on more of His characteristics. And what is one of the things that people say about God and that the Word talks about? God is love. God is love. And so the more time that you spend with God, the more time you devote yourself to God and you place Him first in your life, you become more like Him. So you're going to become a more loving spouse. You're going to become a more loving and caring parent. You're going to become a better employee at work. I mean, when you put God first and you become more like Him and take on more of His characteristics, you are going to become better at all of the things that you really want to anyway in your life. When you put God first in your life, everything else will begin to fall into place where it should be. But we have to put Him first. He needs to be number one in your life. And so my question as I close is this: is God number one in your life? Or is He number 2 or number 7? Where is God at in your life? And I would encourage you today that if He's not number 1, that you begin putting Him number 1 in your life. You begin putting Him at the top of every day and every week. And I believe that you will be amazed at how the other things in your life will begin to fall into place, that the other parts of your life will begin to fall into place and fall into balance in your life. But we have to put God first. And that's going to do it for this Friday's edition of Journey Through the Gospels. On Monday, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 23, and so I hope you have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday.